We live. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to another Everybody Can't Go Convo, a live episode. Today, what I wanted to talk to you guys about is a little bit of a little bit of a deep topic. I was told that, like, oh yeah, this a hit. Y'all know I don't come here to bring diabolical content, so I'm all about you know being on that growth mindset tip and all the things that we need to do before we get to the we can't go. So tonight I wanted to dive into some things with you guys. I wanted to dive into when an apology doesn't cover the damage that you've already done in the past. So let's go ahead and get real deep into it tonight and let's talk about it. A lot of times we don't spend a lot of time speaking about apologizing or apologies when one is needed, one is warranted. And I can actually say that I personally have been through some situations where an apology wasn't even issued when one definitely should have been. And when things go in that way, whether you do receive the apology that you should be getting or not, it does make a difference in how you move forward in that relationship or how you move forward with that person. So I was like, let me go ahead and make me a bulleted list because there were some things that I wanted to walk you guys through tonight as we talk about what those apologies look like, whether you get one, don't get one, if you are the offending party. We're gonna talk about all of it tonight. So go ahead, get your glass of wine so you can wind down with me. And we're gonna go ahead and dig into this. So one of the things that I thought about was the I'm sorry or saying sorry. It does have its limits. So while an apology is sometimes necessary for your behavior, the behavior of another person towards you, whether you need to be the issuing party or the receiving party, while that I'm sorry, that actual conversation or those words or that that interaction needs to happen, while it's necessary, don't think that that's like the band-aid. That's the end all be all. Don't think that that is where like this whole thing ends. Like, you have the conversation, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. My bad, I did that to you. And then you just go ahead and leave it at that. Sometimes that's not always enough to repair the trust that was broken, and or it doesn't always do what it needs to do to repair the emotional wounds that you may have caused or may have received depending on which end of the apology that you're on. And when you're considering that, there is a difference between like just saying I'm sorry and actually being remorseful, and in addition to that, taking true accountability for what you've done to either cause the problem or what you have done to like egg something on. So, like, just consider that whether you're like I'm always a fan of don't issue an apology or go on an apology tour because look, some folks be on that, but don't be on your apology tour just, oh well, I'm sorry, and one, you didn't mean it, and two, you know that you just saying it, you're not remorseful, and or you're not actually going to take accountability for whatever the actions were that led you to having to issue that apology in the first place. So when we're talking about taking that true accountability, that does require an understanding of the actual impact of your actions, understanding like how you hurt someone else or how your behaviors could have left long lasting scars, emotional scars for the other person. um I mean, if you ran up, pushed somebody off the bike, and they scrape their knee. Okay, that's physical. So we're gonna see like, oh shoot, like, apologize to such and such, such. Why would you knock them off their bike? But when we're talking about the emotional scars and sometimes the mental scars that you could have left on someone else because of your actions, because of your words, sometimes because of your lack of inaction or your lack of words as well. Those things could have definitely left a lasting impact on the other person that, even though you've said sorry, you've moved along, they still have things to unpack, they still have things to work through. And if you're leaving that unacknowledged, you could be, even after that apology, you just flippantly, oh, well, I'm sorry, my bad. And you're ready to move on and move along. That doesn't mean that you've actually given a complete acknowledgement to either what you have done, said, and the real impact of the actions that you took that led to you needing to issue an apology in the first place. So, when we're looking at the importance of understanding that, you do kind of owe it to the person to give them a full listen. Listen for understanding, not listening to respond to what they have to say about how they feel about what your words or actions have done to them or for them. Um, is it's important that you listen to how other people or the other person has experienced you. You may have come in with the best of intentions, but the other person's experience of you may not have been the best. It may not have been what you intended. So if you're talking about your actual intent, I would like to know if my intent isn't being met. And so that's not an attack on you as a person. That's not an attack on the person. But that's a place, I always talk to you guys about self-reflection and making sure that you do that self-assessment. Part of that self-assessment is realizing when your intentions didn't land the way that you thought they would. The same way every joke that you make, every joke ain't gonna land and it's not gonna land well. So, and sometimes your intentions, no matter how good or how you thought it out in your head, it's not always gonna land that way. But just because you had those good intentions, that doesn't erase the harmful outcomes that someone else may have experienced on your behalf or because of you. So, as a part of that intention that you had, if you meant all intentions good and you are practicing that accountability and that self assessment so that you can make sure that you're steadily growing, steadily improving, steadily becoming your best version of you that you could possibly be. And you do have to learn how to own that impact, even when it was not your intention for that outcome to occur. Whether you were unaware of it, whether, it was an innocent mistake, still, once someone makes you aware that there is a problem, or once someone makes you aware that what you intended isn't how your words landed, isn't how your actions landed, that's where you have to take that step back and actually hear that person out. You're gathering information, you're looking at, well, okay, if I intended to do this good thing and someone's telling me it didn't exactly land like that, I'm wanting to know, okay, well, where did I go wrong? Where where did this whole thing go left? I know I pointed to the right. Y'all know I don't know my left from my right like that. But anyway, um where did this whole thing go left? Like, where did my good intentions start to veer off, and now we all the way over here in BFE? And for those of y'all that don't know what that is, that's BF Egypt. Look it up, look it up. Shoot, y'all let me know in the comments, like, was that a thing when y'all was growing up, when you just all out the way and call it BFE? But anyway, I digress. But while you don't went way left, you need to know so that, one, this doesn't happen again, and two, so that it doesn't happen again. Not just with this one person, but why would you want to go about the world and just be all over the place and everywhere? Essentially, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Essentially, looking stupid because you think that you are going out here with the best intentions ever, but you're doing it wrong, or it's not landing the way that you thought that it was going to land. Like, if I'm going to put forth effort to do something, one, I want to do it right. And two, I would like for my intentions to come across correctly and also to be met. So, I mean, if well, I'm not gonna say if. I'm not gonna say if that, because you wouldn't be on this pod and you wouldn't be listening to this. You wouldn't be looking at the replay or any of it if you weren't on the tip where you wanted your good intentions to actually land on the other person as the good intentions that you set out to do in the first place. So, while I was doing, sometimes I bring y'all a little bit of research. I'll, go through Google and take a look at a couple of credible sources and some citations and different things. And I came across this concept of something called, I'm gonna do my finger quotes for those of you guys listening on audio, emotional debt. And I'm like, emotional debt, like, dang, that sound a little. Wait a minute. So, emotional debt is the concept of um, what is owed, which is why they call it a debt, what is owed beyond the apology. And so, as I started to dive down and go down that path, I'm like, okay, we going when we're talking about money, I'm always gonna say, like, I'm gonna pay what I owe. I pay my debts. A minister always pays their debts. Like, shout out to the people that love GLT with me, okay? But like when you're talking about paying the debts that you owe, I'm like, okay, that does make sense, even though to me it sounded a little abrasive when I first started to look into it. But it's about how sometimes once we have that conversation and once we give an apology, no matter how heartfelt that apology was, sometimes there are, depending on the severity of the transgression, if you will, there is some additional work that you're going to have to do that you are responsible for, that essentially it does become a debt repayment program. For lack of a better term, it does become that, depending on what breach of trust it was that you did, and what is the severity level of whatever trust it was that you broke. Um, it does, and that makes sense. I mean, a lot of times it's easy to look at it in terms of romantic relationships. The easiest one off the top of my head, if a person cheated. Okay, I just saw a viral clip of this. That's been going around this week. Oh, shout out to Miss Kitty Rose. She is so cute. I love her. She is such a sweetheart. But there was a clip that has been circulating, or at least I've seen it dang near twice a day, every day for the past week and a half or so, where she was talking about after that apology is issued, there is a cycle, or there is a process of rebuilding trust that the person who was the cheater has to go through to repair the trust with the cheatee. Or is that the cheatee? The victim, whatever. But I'm like, okay, that does make sense. There's just certain things that when you get into it, depending on what you and your best friend argued about, which, I mean, why are we arguing with our best friends? But okay, depending on what it is that you guys argued about, look, how far did you take it? Were y'all calling each other names? Did you throw a drink in her face? Did you, I don't know, slash somebody tire? Whatever. Depending on the level of severity, there is going to be some. Did you tell a secret that you weren't supposed to tell, that was supposed to just be between the two of y'all? There is going to be a specific process that you're going to have to follow. Well, maybe not so specific, but a process nonetheless that you're going to have to follow so that you can build that trust up back with that person, so that you can build that rapport back with that person who you broke their trust. It's not just going to be a simple, well, you know what? I'm sorry. Or that fake, oh, sorry you feel that way. Which, by the way, that's not an apology. Like, if that's the way you want to apologize, please just miss anybody with that, because that is just terrible. But when you are apologizing and you're having that crucial conversation, needed conversation, difficult conversation, whatever you want to label that conversation. Even if you guys are able to come to a resolution by the end of that conversation, that doesn't mean that the work is over. That in some cases will be just the beginning. If this wasn't just a small misunderstanding, you do still have work to do. You have work to do later. Like you do have to possibly revisit the conversation again. You may need to provide reassurance. You may need to iron out some additional details. You may need to talk about some other thoughts, some other emotions, some other different things that may have come up as a result of that original that original issue that you guys had. And by doing that, you are showing a commitment to actually like that when you apologize, you truly meant it. That if what you were saying happened, that if it were an honest mistake, that if anything, you're like, I may have made a mistake, but I'm sorry that my actions caused you pain. I care about you as a person. I value our relationship. I value our friendship. I value our connection. There will be certain things that you may need to do beyond just having that first conversation so that you're able to demonstrate that you are actually sorry. An apology is more than just words. It's it's shown through your actions after you say the words. It's shown through changed behavior. So when you're looking at that change behavior, you have to start to examine what real repair looks like. And so when you're looking at what real repair looks like, that's why I said you're going to have to take a look at what the level of severity of whatever the issue is. There will be some tangible steps that the two of you may need to talk about together. Um, I mean, we talk about boundaries here all the time. That may be a place where, even if you can't think of the boundaries that need to be set in that first initial conversation in the moment, you may need to have those in a follow up conversation. You may need to set those boundaries in a tertiary conversation. It may be a few conversations later that you will end up having a conversation about what boundaries you guys need to set so that you're able to work around and actually repair what has gone on between the two of you. And sometimes that repair, it can be something simple. An example would be sometimes there are things that trigger us. There may be comments or certain words, or, you know, we have little banter back and forth or whatever. Sometimes we'll, poke fun at each other, and it's all in good fun. But somebody may say something that it's like, no, that was actually kind of mean. That hurt my feelings. Like, yeah, we were joking around and things, but you said this and that made me feel like that's something that could pop up quickly when everybody is talking fast, when things are going back and forth. And that's something that can quickly come up. There was a specific word. One of my nephews was like, mm-mm, I don't like that word. And I'm like, I use it all the time. And so he was like, "Yeah, I would like for people around me like just don't say that near me." And I'm like, "Okay, I got you." And I'm like, my apologies. I didn't realize that rubbed you the wrong way. Let's talk about it." And so as we started to dive into his thoughts behind it, the way that he felt about it, I'm like, okay, I can see where you coming from. I understand what your boundary is. I respect what your boundary is. And now I'm going to operate within that boundary. Remember, those boundaries are for you, not so that you can control what other people do. However, I chose to operate within that boundary that he set because I want to keep the lines of communication open. I would like to maintain that relationship. I would like to continue to be able to have conversations about the different stuff that we talk about, or hang out, or do the things that we want to do. And if using a certain word is something that's upsetting for him, and it's something that I can easily remove from my vocabulary when we're talking, or just remove it altogether. Simple fix. It just took one conversation. And I'm sorry, I didn't know that that impacted you that way. I didn't know that that made you feel that way. My bad. I'm going to stop that behavior. And so that was an area where it was simple, it was easy. Well, not easy, but simple. That's what we'll say. We'll say that that was a simple fix for what repair needed to look like, what repair needed to occur, so that we're able to continue on with our relationship and to continue to grow and build together. And so that repair usually looks like, first and foremost, like I just said, that changed behavior. It looks like restitution, and then it also looks like long-term effort. So when you're talking about what repair is needed, that behavior change, I'm not saying that you're just going to instantly flip a switch and the behavior change is going to be instantaneous. There are some cases where, yes, it can be. But in the cases where that behavior change is going to require some additional work, is going to require some long-term effort. Are you willing to do that? And really think through it. Think through whether or not you're able to, like, take on that change of behavior long term, and whether or not you're willing to do that, so that you're going to be able to properly communicate to the other person that you're speaking with when you're deciding whether or not you are going to commit to that change. Sometimes when we're looking at what real repair looks like, we aren't, don't be so worried about getting past the, I'm sorry, let's finish this conversation. Yes, I'm just going to do whatever, so that you can get the conversation over with, just because it's a difficult conversation to have, or because the conversation feels uncomfortable. Really take your time while you're having the conversation, so that you can think through, when you guys are talking about what the real repair looks like, whether or not you are able to commit to what it is that you're saying. Are you able to do this change behavior? Is it something that you can do instantaneously? Do you need some additional assistance? One of the things that I like to implement, if there is something if there's a habit that I have, or if there is something that well, if it's something that I say that's triggering, that one usually I just remember on recall. But if it's a habit, if it's something that you have a habit of, habits, we know sometimes it's hard to break them. And we've already talked about whether you habit stacking or you are trying to replace a bad habit with something new. We talked about that it takes that 21 days of being very intentional about replacing that habit. So if there's any other habit, and it takes at least bare minimum 21 days of, like, super intentionality, so that you're able to break that habit. What makes you think that in just one conversation, you're going to promise that you're not going to do that habit anymore? That's not realistic. So that's why when we're talking about your commitment of changed behavior, that you are looking at and accepting that that may require long-term effort and intentionality as well, because we do have to be intentional, and also honest with ourselves. How much are we able to actually promise? I always recommend make sure that you under promise and over deliver, because when you over promise and you under deliver, then that kind of takes away some of your credibility in how safe of a space you are for other people, and whether or not you are able to demonstrate your trustworthiness. And that's another one of those places where your intentions may not exactly meet what impact you actually had when you are acting throughout the world and when you're moving around. So, y'all know the title. Y'all know where you at, and y'all know everybody can't go. Okay? So, we will talk about that part when the relationship can't or shouldn't be rebuilt. Sometimes you do have to understand that some people they may not want to reconcile, and that is okay. That's valid. That's valid. That sometimes what you have done, it may be beyond repair. And sometimes that apology, it comes too late or it's after there's been something done that was so egregious or so severe for the other person that they may not want to reconcile with you. And sometimes, if you are the person who's been offended, you do have to think through whether or not you would like to continue that friendship, that, excuse me, that relationship with a person. And on either side, whether you don't want to continue because someone has hurt you or whether you were someone who has hurt someone else, both sides of that coin are valid and both sides of that coin should be honored. Now, when you're looking at someone may not want to repair a situation with you or a relationship with you, you do have to accept the consequences of your actions. And even if the other person doesn't, if they don't forgive you, you still, for you, we always say forgiveness is for you, not the other person, blah, blah, blah. Even if that other person does not forgive you, you do have to accept the consequences of your actions. Or don't. I mean, you don't have to accept the consequences of your actions, but that's on you. But I'm assuming because you're here and because you are all about growth, and that's what we're on over here. Hashtag growth mindset. Hashtag that, y'all. But um, because you're here and that's the type of time we on, again, accountability. Taking accountability for what you've done, what you've said, for your actions, whatever of those things that you've done, you do have to accept the consequences of those and stand 10 toes on it. Like you stood 10 toes when you said what you said, did what you did, or whatever the situation was that occurred. Just the same way that you had good intentions and you were standing 10 toes right then, you do have to also stand 10 toes on accepting the consequences of those actions. You can work through later. If you have not received forgiveness from the other person, that's something separate to work through. That is something that I mean, you have to accept that as well, because again, you can't make somebody else do anything. But what you can do is take a look at how you can make sure that you aren't repeating those same harmful behaviors or those same harmful actions in the future. Even that, and that's something that you can do for yourself so that you're able to show up better in the world and so that you're able to put your best foot forward. And that can be done even without the forgiveness of the other person. And I'll just put that little caveat in there for some of you guys that even if you were the person who was on the receiving end, that someone has done something to you. I know people say it all the time, but yes, the forgiveness it is for you. But also, even though it happened to you, accept the situation. I'm not saying you got to accept or tolerate disrespect and foolishness. I'm just saying the situation, it happened already. Don't hold on to that and don't internalize it. Don't let that thing just keep eating away at you, eating away at you, eating away at you, while the other person, I don't know, goes off gallivants, do whatever it is that they're going to do. Make sure that you really take the time to step back and examine the situation in its totality, in its entirety, and truly give some thought to forgiving that person. Now, don't forget the forgiveness does not mean that this thing has to be repaired. It doesn't mean that the relationship dynamic or the friendship dynamic has to be rebuilt. It doesn't mean that You have to like, it don't mean y'all gotta hang out again. Y'all don't have to get on the phone. Y'all don't have to talk. Y'all don't have to DM each other back and forth. Y'all don't have to send messages, none of that. But do make sure that in your heart, like really take a look at whether or not and pray on it. Y'all know over here we love Jesus. So I'm gonna talk about him, okay? We're gonna talk about Jesus from time to time, and we're gonna talk about God over here because y'all know I love him. But really have take that time out, or whatever God you serve, or whatever higher power you serve, take that time out so that you can actually meditate on what does forgiveness look like and what do you need to release from your heart? What do you need to release from your mind so that those things don't keep you bound? And I know sometimes it's hard to do, and sometimes it may take a while. It does. Sometimes it's a process. Just like the apology, it's a process, that conversation is a process, and then any of the action items for reconciliation afterwards, that also is a process. Forgiveness is a process as well. So we're not just talking about the process of apologizing or apologies, we're also talking about the process of forgiveness. And that process of forgiveness, whether that is going to be external between you and the other person, the most important thing is that internal forgiveness. Whether you make it an external thing with you and the other person or not, that has to happen inside in order for you to grow. Because I mean, growth gonna happen either way. If you want to hold on to that thing and let it become a seed of something negative, it's still gonna grow. What kind of fruit will you bear? Will you be bearing fruit that's trash, or will you be bearing good fruit? Will you be bearing fruit that is straight up, it's rotten? It's full of parasites and all types of other stuff because you chose to take that seed of anger, that seed of hurt, that seed of whatever that you needed to forgive, and that's what you decided to grow and bear fruit with. Remember, I tell you all the time, you get to choose. If that's what you choose, just know that is what is going to come out. That is what you're going to bear. That is what you're going to produce. So don't let that be the seed that you plant. Don't let that be the seed that you allow to grow. Don't let that be the seed that you give nutrients to. I mean, what would it look like in real life if you just sat up there and buried some poo, hoping to grow some roses? You see how dumb that just sounded when I said it? But that's what you're gonna water. That's what you're gonna like. That's what you're gonna try to grow something out of. Um, I have a one of my homies says all the time, you can't turn poo into sugar, and I'm like, and you do the alliteration right there, and you'll know what he says all the time. He definitely don't say turn poo into sugar, but do the alliteration and you'll catch my drift. And that's very true. So make sure that when you're looking at that forgiveness, do remember that it is for you. And it's going to have an impact on the fruit that you're bearing later. It's going to have an impact on what is coming out of you later. It's going to have an impact on your aura. So as we're moving forward, we're going to dig a little bit deeper, just a little bit, and take a look at there is, and this is the part that we don't talk about. This is the part that because it's ugly, it don't feel good. This is the part that cuts. But growth don't always feel good. It's gonna take some cuts. It's gonna take some bumps, some bruises. So let's talk about the shame and the guilt that comes behind when you need to apologize to someone or when you owe someone an apology. And on the flip side of that, let's talk about the shame and the guilt when someone else owes you an apology and all of those feelings that you went ahead and buried that stuff, or you just let it fall by the wayside because you'll address it later. So you just let it ride, you let it ride. You do, when you're taking accountability for the transgression that you may have or the issue that you may have caused, the pain, the hurt, whatever it is that you may have caused, you do have to process your own feelings. Now, I'm not saying take it to that other person that you're supposed to be apologizing to, expecting for them to process it for you or process it with you. That's not the right conversation. That's not the time. Okay, that's when you take yourself out. But the same way that I talked about that forgiveness is going to take some time to process to yourself. When you're processing your feelings of shame, your feelings of guilt, you do have to process those feelings when you're talking to the other person. No, sorry, not when you're talking to the other person, because the point is you got to make sure that you're not making it about you. If your role in the conversation is to issue an apology, you aren't making it about you. You aren't making it about how you feel shamed for whatever has come up. You may feel guilty because you may not have meant to hurt someone else's feelings. You may not have it. Remember, you went into this with the best intentions. You went into this with good intentions. And so you may feel guilty because of things not going through the way that you intended, or things not happening or panning out the way that you had planned. You do have to take the time to process those feelings. And you got to own your feelings, like own those. Like don't ignore it and just like, oh no, that's not part of it. I'm good. How many times do we just say, "Oh, I'm fine. Hey, how are you today? Good, and you? Are you really good? Are you good? Are you good?" I ain't gonna cap y'all. I got that from my grandma. She would be sitting on that porch on the block in her rocking chair, and she would, anytime she'd answer that phone, or somebody would walk down the street, if somebody would come up on the porch, anytime we came up on the porch, "How you doing today? Good, and you?" How many times have we just picked up that "I'm good, and you?" or "I'm fine"? How often is that our automatic response when somebody says something to us? We just automatically like, "Oh yeah, I'm good, I'm fine," and we keep it moving because we're so used to that just being a part of just regular speech. Sometimes it just roll off your tongue and your mind is somewhere else. You're not even thinking about what you're saying. You're just saying it. Don't do that to yourself when you're spending time with yourself, processing your feelings. Make sure that you actually like set aside some quiet time. Y'all know we talked about mindfulness, we talk about self-care, we talk about getting into that place where you're able to meditate, you're able to pray. Take some time separate from any meditation or prayer time that you already have built into your day, built into your week. Take time that is separate from that so that you're able to actually process through these feelings. Because even when you're praying on it, if you haven't taken the time to process through what are you actually feeling, how you gonna pray on it? You don't even know you don't know what you're praying about. You don't know what you're asking for because you haven't taken the time with self so that you could think through those things. And the other thing that that does for you, when you take that time to process through those feelings without making it about you in that conversation, it allows you to come to the conversation, to come to the other person, and to be able to apologize from a genuine place, an authentic place, and from a place of understanding. I'm talking about a whole different level of communication, a whole new level of communication. When you're able to not only put yourself in somebody else's shoes, but when you're able to come with your feelings and actually having processed those so that you know what it is that you're trying to express. You've thought through the words that you need to say or what you're trying to say. Remember that intent. When we're not thinking through or processing our own emotions, we can be trying to say a bunch of stuff. How many times have you ended a conversation, whether it was a difficult conversation, a needed conversation, crucial conversation, or just a regular conversation? And you're like, "Oh, dang, I could have said such and such different. I could have said such and such better." But especially when it's one of those conversations that it needs to be had. When it's one of those that needs to be had and you haven't thought through what is it that you coming to the table with? What actually are you trying to say? Now you don't wasted your time and the other person's time. You still gonna have to go back and think about it and sometimes feel those feelings that are not so good, but it's a part of that process. It's a part of the process. It's a part of your growth. And it's something that needs to be done so that you don't end up with shame paralysis, or so that you don't end up deflecting from your responsibility in whatever the conflict that arose or the issue that arose was. So we're going to go back to talking about boundaries a little bit, because if someone else sets some boundaries for you, or well, you see how I just slipped right there. When somebody else sets some boundaries and you decide whether or not you will respect that person's boundaries, do realize that the other person, they may be guarded still. Even though the boundary has been set, they've set that boundary to protect themselves so that they can stay inside their little boundary bubble, and they'll decide whether or not they'll step outside of that. Do realize that sometimes it takes time. People may be distant even after that conversation, after the apology. Even if it was heartfelt, sometimes you have to give people time and space so that they can heal on their own terms. You don't just get to say, "Well, I apologize, so feel better." Now, right now. Doesn't work like that. You get to choose, but you don't get to choose for someone else. And you especially don't get to choose for someone else based upon how your actions or words or any of that may have harmed someone else. So, do respect their need for space and healing on their own terms. And if you were the person who you were transgressed against, make sure that you respect your own need for space so that you're able to heal. If you need to, like, if you need some time, own that and communicate that. The healthy communication, it doesn't just go one way. All of the burden doesn't just go on to the person who should be issuing an apology. Sometimes as the person who's on the receiving end of that, if you need more time, express that, communicate that, because that does cause additional issues. When really what you needed after that apology was for someone to be understanding, you needed more time to process your feelings, to process the apology, to figure out what you need or needed or will need in the future. You do have to communicate that effectively to the other person so that you're not just sitting there looking like you acting fake. So that you're not sitting there, you like, oh no, okay, I accept your apology. It's good. Are you really good? It's okay to take a step back and take a step away so that you can work through some of those things within yourself. Some things are not meant to be worked out all out loud, all with the like, oh, let's just we're gonna keep hanging out, we're gonna pretend everything's okay. Like, no, don't do that. Sometimes you do need to take a step back so that you're able to process that, and so that you can heal and come back to the table so that you're able to communicate in a healthy way. And I think a lot of times because we do that, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, we find ourselves not taking that time alone. Because remember, just because you're alone doesn't mean that you're lonely. But sometimes we do need to take that time alone so that we're able to process and think through these things. So that leads me to my last couple of points. Make sure that after, if you were the person that caused some harm, make sure that you examine your actions, your words, whether or not you gave the person an apology, and make sure that, because you all are growth minded, that's why you're here. Make sure that you examine how that pain that you caused someone else, you can make sure that you don't repeat that you don't do it again, that it doesn't come up at another time, especially when you went in with the best of intentions. Make sure that you use that for a powerful catalyst for transformation. You get to choose whether or not you're just going to hold on to that thing, feel that shame, feel that guilt, that embarrassment, and just like hold on to that. The reason why you're processing those emotions is so that you're able to release them and so that you're able to do something better next time. There's a purpose greater than your pain. There's a purpose greater than the pain that you may have caused someone else. So make sure that you're using that as a springboard, making sure you're getting a lesson out of it, make sure that you're getting the transformation out of it. And you never know. The stuff that we be going through, it's not for us. The stuff that we're going through or that we go through, have gone through, all of the things that we've gone through is so that you can help someone else, so that you can help the next person. But you get to choose whether or not you're going to learn from your mistakes and whether or not you will allow yourself to help the next person to either not make the same mistake you did, or so that you're able to be there and support, give someone advice to help them through if they've made the same mistake, what to do, or if they've made that same mistake, how to overcome it or how to communicate in a more effective or healthier way than the route that you may have taken. So there's always something positive that can come from it. But you have to make that choice that you are going to make that negative into a positive, that you're going to turn that thing into a lesson, and that when you get that lesson and you have a full understanding of it, whether or not you're going to go out into the world and do something good with it. So, make sure that you are open for that self discovery and make that commitment to doing better in the world, doing better for yourself, doing better for others, just doing better, period. And then make sure that finally, if you do have that difficult conversation, crucial conversation, needed conversation, y'all know E tore me up. He like, no, the conversation is needed. I got you, E. I got you. Even though I still say difficult conversation and crucial conversation, E told me it's a needed conversation. And shout out to ET because that's real. The conversation, it is a needed one. Because if the conversation is difficult, if the conversation is a crucial one, you need to have the conversation. And as long as the other person is able and willing to meet you at the table to have that conversation, you do need to have that conversation. But when that conversation ends, or it sometime throughout that, there's an apology that needs to be issued or is issued, make sure that you give that apology not only genuinely and like if it's not wholehearted, don't. If it's not wholehearted, just don't. But make sure that that apology that you give, that it doesn't come with expectations. Because again, you can make choices for yourself, but you don't get to dictate how the other person receives your apology, how they receive your changed behavior. When the changed behavior is enough for them to feel comfortable, for them to retrust, for that bridge to be rebuilt in the way that you would like for it to be built. And so, like, get just like I said, sometimes we need to take time away. We need to have space, respect that someone else might need that space. And you're releasing the need for getting any closure, for forgiveness, for reconciliation, all of those things. Sometimes you just need to go ahead and put that apology there, have that difficult conversation, sorry, needed conversation, and don't have any expectations of how the other person is going to receive it, what they're going to do with it, what the aftermath is going to be, unless you guys have actually discussed that with what the next steps will be and how you guys will be moving forward. And respect however it is that they say, whatever it is that they say that their needs are, so that you guys are able to move forward if that's possible. And just remember, an apology is a gift. And that's why I said, only give it wholeheartedly, only give it if you mean it. Don't just say the words if you aren't going to follow it up with changed action. Apologizing isn't a transaction. You're not just saying the word so that you can get something else. You're not giving to get, because when you do it in that way, that's fake giving anyway. That makes you a taker. And when we're working on building mutually beneficial relationships, it doesn't serve either one of y'all for somebody to be a taker. So make sure that you consider all of those things and that you take that time for repair, for growth, for working through any of the emotions that you have. Whether you need to give somebody an apology or whether you are the person who receives an apology, or if you're that person that you don't get nothing and you never get that apology. Sometimes an apology doesn't repair or cover the damage that a person's already done in the past. So we'll go ahead and wrap it there. And shameless plug. I'm going to give you guys a shameless plug. Of course, of course, of course. If you are in the DMV area or if you know how to book a flight, go ahead and make sure that you meet us in the DMV. We have two spots left after we went live last night. We have two spots left for content creators for podcasters at Pod Peaks Weekend 2025 here live in the DMV. Make sure if you are in the DMV area, even if you all the way up there to Baltimore, it's some of y'all that's down there in Richmond. I'm like, make the drive for your girl, cause y'all know I love you. But if you are anywhere remotely around the DMV, or you want to take a road trip, or you just like bump it, ball out, and you want to take a flight, meet us on Saturday, June 28th, here in the DMV area. We have the tickets available via Eventbrite. If you would like to take one of the last two creator slots that we have left, shoot me a DM. Y'all see all my socials, they're connected, and go ahead and shoot me a DM so that we can go ahead and get you on that exclusive list for the full weekend itinerary. And for those of you who would like to join us for a half day of coaching, you guys will be experiencing four dynamic coaches. We have a special guest who is coming through. Shouts out to JR, shouts out to Chop of Chop House Media, JR from Real Let's Talk Podcast, and also Nas from oh, he gonna get me changing the narrative. Boom. Okay, there we go. Y'all see my recall. Y'all saw that happening in real time. Okay. Shout out to Nas. We are coming through with four power pack sessions for you guys. We have a special guest, Izzy Bake, coming on with us from the PSA podcast. And we are going to walk you guys through. By the time you leave, you will have a set of goals, you will have a strategy, and we will make sure that those things are in alignment with your vision. So you're not just out here making some goals that is like, oh yeah, that's all good stuff to have, but where are you going? We are going to walk you through exactly what you need to do so that you can get tangible results, not just so you can feel good, not just so you can talk about what you're about to do. We are going to work you guys and walk you guys through how to get some actual tangible results. You're going to walk away with that action plan and all types of other freebies and goodies. Luckily tonight I'm on here by myself because when I get the rest of the guys to talking, they just be giving away stuff. They be giving away merch, giving away freebies, giving away tickets, just giving away all types of stuff. So make sure that you come check us out Saturday, June 28th, and go ahead, cop your tickets, and we will see you guys next week for another Everybody Can't Go Convo.